Welcome to the Agentic AI Survival Series for marketers. It's a three-part series where we look at what it takes to stay connected and relevant to customers as they interact with the various modes of agentic AI that we see out there in the real world. My name is Ross McRae. I'm a CDP strategist here at Telium. Now, in part one, we set the foundations by looking at the importance and prevalence of agentic AI, the disconnect with your brand that can result, and how to adapt to it. And then we looked at 7 key digital capabilities needed for turn-by-turn context streaming. Here in part two, we're going to look at first, second, and third-party agents. We'll define each agentic mode, and then for each, we're going to show you what it looks like, how you build for it as well. And then we'll finish up driving home the context streaming imperative, which all of those modes not only rely on, but they also take advantage of. Okay, let's have a look at first, second, and third-party agents and define what they mean. So first-party agents, these are agents that you're in control of. But your customers still get this agentic convenience. So on your website, we might be talking about conversational commerce or a chat bot or a guided search, loyalty assistant or a returns assistant. Those would all be examples. You could have the same examples inside your mobile app, clearly as well. Think about a contact center. You could have like a co-pilot agent for the human agent, telling that human agent what it needs to know and what you as a human agent should perhaps say next to the customer who's just calling in. And then we could also have agents running in devices like an in-store kiosk, for example, scanners, point of sale, checkout, that kind of thing. The self-checkout at the supermarket would be a great example of where you could deploy an agent. Now, there is a level of disintermediation because the customer, as we were talking about last time, because the customer is dealing with an agent instead of, browsing around and leaving their footprints all over your site or your app, for example. They're just interacting with the agent. But the thing to remember here is that it's your domain. These are your agents, and you have strong influence over everything that happens in them. That's first-party agents. Second-party agents. So second-party means your app inside an agentic AI chatbot such as ChatGPT. So what we're talking about here is the idea that you're meeting your customers where they are with your own app. And ChatGPT apps, for example, so who's there? At the moment, you can go into, and depending on where you are in the world, to be fair, because these are coming on at different paces at different parts of the world, but Zillow, Expedia, Coursera, Spotify is there, booking.com. Coming soon, we've got Uber, DoorDash, Target, and others will definitely follow. And in some ways, it's a bit like having a Facebook page in the sense that I'm in this other ecosystem. When you think about a Facebook page, you don't get all the data that you might really want, but at least you're present. So is there still this kind of gap with the brand? Are you still disintermediated? Well, no, actually not completely. Because remember, this is actually still your app that just happens to be running inside ChatGPT. And then third party. So what is third party agentic? So third party is where you allow, or in some cases, the third party agent takes it on its own initiative, as it were, but we allow third party agents to include you in their service offerings, as it were, to their customers and their users. So we have OpenAI, who released the Agentic Commerce Protocol. And basically, if you build and expose, there's 3 required components, which we're going to go into. But if you build and expose those 3 components of ACP, the Agentic Commerce Protocol, then an agent can offer your products and also offer instant checkout, all within the interface of the agent. Here we are, early 2026. Google has just announced what is now the second major commerce protocol, the Universal Commerce Protocol, and it does the same kind of thing. It's allowing a merchant, a seller, to publish a set of tools around their inventory, their checkout process, and shipping, for example, which again means the same thing, that an agent can use those. If you as the brand have exposed those tools, another third-party agent can enable its users to browse your products and check out instantly in that interface. Now, there's a second flavor, if you like, of third-party agents, which is the Perplexity Comet model, which kind of bypasses all of that in the sense of those commerce protocols. It partners with payment platforms, which means you can transact without ever formally interacting with the brand that you're actually buying from, even behind the scenes. There's no direct exchange of information, but you can still do it. All right. So let's go through each into a bit more detail about how they work. So let's focus on first-party agentic to start with. So these are agents you own and control. They engage customers directly or indirectly on your properties, and you can think of them in two broad categories: customer-facing agents like chatbots, and then co-pilot agents that a customer service rep would interact with as they engage with the customer. And here's sort of three examples of what they look like. We're using like a fictitious retail brand, Retail Me here, but the principles are the same in any industry vertical, really. So look on the left-hand side, classic kind of chatbot. It's agentic behind the scenes. It's got customer context that it works with. So along with its brand and product context to inform its responses and make relevant recommendations. So it knows that it can say to you, I can deliver by Friday because it knows where you live. I didn't actually have to tell it because it's already identified me and it has that knowledge. And it can say delivery is free since you're a silver member because it knows I'm a silver member and it knows it can make that offer. So that's a chatbot example. In the middle, this is just an example of a contact center co-pilot. So not only does it have access to the real-time omni-channel profile, as you see here, um, but it uses that data to infer what the customer might be calling about. So at the bottom, you can see Mary has an upcoming superhero kids party. This is what she could be calling about. Then how do we know this? Well, in this little example here, we've had a chatbot interaction which is telling us as much. So that's like a call center, a contact center co-pilot. And then on the right-hand side, you get an agentic mobile app, for example. Imagine if you had near field comms switched on. I could be in this retail store. I could scan for a price at something as I, or scan for any offers as I'm in a particular aisle, and the mobile app could have a whole bunch of things that it then can offer for me that are relevant, that are going to drive me to engage more. So three examples of first-party agents. Now, how can a chatbot, a copilot, or a mobile app do that? Well, the answer is when it is powered by an AI agent. And last time in the first webinar of the series, we highlighted 7 key capabilities that make an AI agent smart and effective. And this is what it takes to be able to stream customer context to AI agents at every turn of the conversation. And it's also what enables the agent to act outside of the channel it's currently in. You know, this idea of context streaming in both directions. Tell the agent what it needs to know and be available to it, but also allow the new understanding that the agent discovers to also be sent out to all the platforms that need to know about it. Real brief, we'll just go through what those are. You can see them on the slide here, but we need to have consent. We need to know that the agent is either only getting data it's allowed to use or it knows what it is allowed to do with the data that it's got. We have this notion of recall, meaning I can bring back everything I should know that's in the customer's profile. The agent can have it. We have this notion of updating, which means anything that happens in the course of the conversation, I'm going to update back into the profile that the whole rest of the organization is also using to understand customer. When we talk about augment, we're talking about the ability to enrich data with all sorts of services that we do in our databases all the time when we're building customer databases, and to do things like, I don't know, detect PII, for example, detect something that indicates fraud. We might want to understand what the weather is at the moment that this conversation is happening, for example. When it comes to predict means our predictive models, they should also be getting these chat signals. Something I say or something the agent says back to me might, in fact, be a reason to rescore on a predictive model, and it certainly would be a reason to send more data for training into a predictive model. When we talk about interpretation, we're talking about extending the ability or the abilities of the agent with things like the ability to interpret sentiment, for example, or to classify any given signal as perhaps meaning something specific that we're on the lookout for. So a bunch of extra tools, agentic tools that will basically give us new features to work with and for the agent itself to use as it responds directly to the user. And then finally, when we talk about ACT, this is this notion of the context streaming working in both directions. Something that happens maybe cause for us to send a message to a consumer through a different channel, for example. At the very least, I want to update my databases that have this view of customer with what's happening right now in this conversation. Okay, now let us see where that fits in. We're going to go to the next level of detail. So when you build an AI agent, firstly have a look at the top of this picture. So we've got our Retail Me agent, and it is built with within an agentic framework. And there are a couple of them around that are quite common. LangChain is one that springs to mind. But the idea here is that with this, what we do is we're arming this agent with a set of tools for it to use to best respond to the user that it's engaged with. And what best responds means, best response to means, well, that's controlled by you, the builder of the agent. And you build out rules and flows using your chosen agentic framework. Now, importantly, you need a set of tools that provide brand and organizational and macro context. That's the retail me tools here. You need those. That's not bare minimum. But you also need a set of tools that provide customer context. That's the context streaming we've been talking about. You can see those on the left, which I'm characterizing here as Telium tools. Let's go one level deeper, just so we really nail this home. So in the bottom left of this diagram, this is basically an architecture of an agentic chat or an AI agent, really. At the very top of this picture, where it says web, app, chatbot, POS, point of sale, kiosk, contact center, this is where your agent might be surfaced. We've been talking about chatbots, for example, but these are all examples. And down the bottom, ultimately, these are all this is a set of tools that you need to expose to your agent so that it can have the kind of the context that it needs. So bottom left, that's your brand context tools. We're showing this in the retail environment, but as I said, the same principles apply to any industry vertical. So products, services, policies, strategies, compliance, constraints, your transactional capabilities, they're all there. So every AI agent must have access to these sorts of services. But in the bottom right is the key differentiator, really. So this is where our tools for customer context are and customer experience execution too. And this is what you need to set you apart to enable the AI agent to deliver truly personalized experiences. And it's actually quite simple in context, really. With the whole of Telium running behind, and we are talking Telium here, folks, with the whole of Telium running behind these three simple tools that you see here, you're actually able to deliver dynamically changing customer context at each turn of the conversation, like to and from the agent. So on updating that profile back to Telium in the moment, you then got the ability to activate customer experiences across your entire customer experience ecosystem, without having to have the agent connect to each one by one. The point is you've got this context streaming in and out layer that's switched on all the time. Now, this is really powerful, and this is what powers your first party agents. But here's the thing: it doesn't just apply to your first party agents. So now then, let's look at second party agents. So this is where your business builds inside someone else's agentic ecosystem. Like it's a bit like an app in an AI marketplace, but your customers can tell their favorite agent to use your app to answer their questions and service their needs. Here's what it looks like. So in ChatGPT, you can say, "Hey, retail me, send me stickers and treat boxes for my superhero themed kids party." That same example we had before. You're explicitly saying to ChatGPT, and it is ChatGPT that we're focusing on here, to use your, a consumer can say to use your brand, explicitly call it in its as that consumer asks questions and browses and looks for advice, etc. Here's Zillow, for example. Zillow, show me homes for sale in Kansas City for under 500,000. This is only available Zillow's in the US, so that's why we're showing this particular example. Local examples are probably on their way in our region as we speak. Now, you look at that nice interface. You can clearly see I'm now in a Zillow property style app, and this is important. So how does this work? Well, this is a very similar diagram to the one we showed before, but what's different about it? So look at the top. It's not your agent now, it's ChatGPT. And it's not your agentic framework, it's ChatGPT's. So that's the difference. And so what you need to do then, if you want to have your app available inside ChatGPT, you have to build it. Build an app using ChatGPT's App SDK. And it's through that SDK and your app with the right SDK components in it, that the ChatGPT agent interacts with your brand. So you can see the connection is to our Retail Me brand. So ChatGPT through the parts of the app that are in the SDK is now integrated with your tools. And what are your tools? They're the same tools that we were talking about before, and they explicitly are MCP tools, which is one of the standards that agents are using to adopt and orchestrate tools. And they, of course, then include Telium tools. If I go down to the next level here, it's the same similar kind of diagram to the ones that we saw before. But really, the whole suite of tools you can choose to make available all of your, on the bottom left, all of your brand context on the bottom left, and then on the bottom right, your customer context. These are all just a bunch of tools which you can expose through that app um, up to ChatGPT. Just a word about MCP, that's the Model Context Protocol. It's, as I say, certainly in the open AI world, that's a standard for sharing tools and interacting with tools that agents have. Okay, so that's the detail of that, but there's a bit more to it than this. Let's have a look uh, at the app itself. So ChatGPT wants to be fully agentic, by which I mean it wants to know about all those tools, those MCP tools and interfaces that you provide for it to use, to have at its disposal. And it will use all of those tools in a conversational turn-by-turn interaction with the user, just like your first-party agent would itself. Now, we can't control ChatGPT's agentic flow. We can't tell it what to use when, and we don't really want to because, people use it because they like the way it works. It works. But what you do have control over is the tools that you give it to work with. And you do have the control over the way that they're exposed in MCP to help ensure that ChatGPT discovers and uses the right tools for the right job. So you have control there. And you also have the ability to run code from within the app that you build. In fact, I mean, ChatGPT requires you to provide to it an app which gives it your interface. I mean, ChatGPT is not going to come up with a property finder kind of interface. It's your app that you're going to use. So ChatGPT allows you to write, and as I say, requires you to write your own UI widget, and it will run it inside an iframe in the ChatGPT UI. So it's basically a single page app, and it's your app, which means you can control that you can control the weighting between what that app does and what your MCP tools do. So you've got complete control over this, really. So the message here is twofold. Firstly, you're very much still in the loop, even though it's an app running in another agent inside ChatGPT in this case. So one, you're very much still in the loop. And two, the tools that you use here and that you're exposing, they're the same ones that you build for your first party agents. So same tools, and they've got equal application here, no rework. Okay, let's now look at third-party agentic, third-party agents. So this is AI agents from anywhere that could transact with your business programmatically. It's not in your UI, and there's no app here. This is the agent, third-party agent doing its thing. Okay, have a look at this. So we mentioned the Agentic Commerce Protocol, and it looks like this in action. So what we're looking at here is a user who's interacting with ChatGPT, asking about handmade jewelry gifts. Now, Etsy here has exposed some data and services under the Agentic Commerce Protocol, ACP, which means that ChatGPT can not only show products to the user and make meaningful recommendations about them, this goes with that, and have knowledge about them, but it can also offer the user instant checkout, which means that the user inside ChatGPT here can buy products all within the ChatGPT interface. Now, more recently, in early 2026 here, Google has introduced another protocol, the Universal Commerce Protocol, and it is a similar thing. It's a similar framework, and it allows any merchant, a seller, to publish a set of well, you might refer to it as a commerce manifest. So the machine readable versions of of all of their capabilities, their inventory, their checkout, shipping, for example. So it's another commerce. So these things are here, and they are here to stay. Um, Now, as mentioned earlier, there is an approach adopted by Perplexity's AI browser Comet, for example, which bypasses the need for merchant exposed services or any commerce protocol. So, as mentioned, it integrates with payment systems, meaning that consumers can transact with brands without ever leaving the AI browser, but also without any formal merchant provided services. So, it is possible, and it's certainly happening out there. However, we believe that the sentiment in the market, certainly as expressed by some big retailers, is that brands are likely to adopt agentic commerce in the more controlled way that OpenAI's agentic commerce protocol and Google's universal commerce protocol enable. So that's the way we see brands going. It's more ordered and it gives you much more control. And here you can see in this quote, this is Walmart embracing this. So this was late 2025 when they said this, but this is agentic commerce in action. This is the way they see it going. So Google UCP is still fresh at the moment as we record this. Let's just have a look at how this works in ACP, the Agentic Commerce Protocol, so you can see what it takes. So again, like our earlier pictures, look at the top. Here we're showing this in ChatGPT. So the agent is not yours. It is ChatGPT again. And it's ChatGPT that's powered by the Agentic Commerce Protocol. And with the Agentic Commerce Protocol, you're required to build three API endpoints. One, a product feed. Two, a checkout service. And three, you need to provide details to your payment service provider. There are conditions around that, but these are the three core things. Now, when you go and look in the Agentic Commerce Protocol in ACP, you'll see that it includes provision for messages and links to be provided to the user as the order progresses. And that's it's made in the webhook call to ChatGPT when you're returning the call to their API call. So, and you can also, there's also provision in that protocol to allow ChatGPT in this case to collect additional data and send it to you, particularly as it interacts with the checkout API. So you could prompt the user, have you got a loyalty ID? And ID that ChatGPT could do this and send it in as part of the to and fro as it interacts with your checkout API that you built. So you've got the information, you've got the ability to ask and send information, the chat AI agent does, and you've got the ability to then provide links and other information back. So you are still, even though it's a third-party agent, you are still exerting some influence. And that's exactly where you get the chance to do it. Now, and of course, since the agent is calling your API, you can do anything you like. You're writing the service behind it, including, of course, you could call your first party agent and pass it in the user's question or the search and have it respond and return that back in as a message or as a series of or as a link, for example, back to the user. So you've still got control over this. Just touching on Google's Universal Commerce Protocol, it actually goes a little bit further. If you look at their documentation, it actually confirms that merchants have the option to provide an embedded checkout URL that a bit like the ChatGPT, sorry, the second party agentic app where you're providing an app. Here, you can provide a URL and Google, you can display that in an iframe, and now you've basically got an endpoint that the customer's now using your own site effectively or microsite that you provide to assist with the checkout. And the way Google describes that is this is useful for complex flows or specific branding needs. It's almost like your app now all of a sudden. So the Google UCP looks to hold out, particularly good opportunities for you to remain influential, even when a third-party app is interacting with you, third-party agent. Okay, let's recap. We've discussed three modes of agentic AI, first, second, and third party. We've defined each one, and then for each one, we've shown what it looks like in the real world and how you build for it and how you stay in touch. And we've shown that the essential tools that enable an AI agent to have this turn-by-turn customer context and then that allows the agent to personalize effectively, these can be applied in all three agentic modes. So here's the takeaway. As marketers, we think back. We've successfully navigated the kind of generational shift into IVR, for example, the phone-based ordering, websites in e-commerce, mobile apps. The next big shift is into agentic AI. It's already here. The good news is then we can still thrive and put AI agents to work for us, as marketers, if you like, everywhere those agents are operating, first, second, or third party. But if you're going to stand out and if your agents are going to be smart and effective, you need to get working on those essential tools for providing streaming customer context at every turn of the conversation. Okay, that concludes this second episode. Join us next time when we'll go through the reasons for getting going with first, why get going with it, first, second, and third party agentic. And then we'll wrap up the series with some recommendations on how to actually get started. Thank you.